All right, so I'm going to try and give you over the next 45 minutes to an hour the tips and tricks to write an essay colleges will love. And let's get on the right screen so I can make this go. There we go. All right. If you attended last week, this is all review. Keep your focus narrow and personal. Right? This is a personal application. This is what we're looking for. The difference, though, you had 350 words, which go by fast. There's no doubt about it. This, you got 650 words, and you can share your journey. Now, we can't share a lot about your journey, but we can hit some highlights. Now, I would like you to think of every great Disney movie you've ever seen where you meet the hero, something bad happens, and then all of a sudden they fast forward a bunch of years and all of a sudden something's good happening. All right, that's the UC application. There's not a lot of space for detail. But on the Common App, we don't have to fast forward so much. We can spend a little time and discuss something. Not a lot of time, but we can spend enough time to give you a little bit of a personality, right? And I know some of you, I know how hard that is, but God, no one smiles. Just absolutely, I'm working, I'm killing myself up here, and just no one's smiling. All right. Anyway, so for 650 words, we really can do a few things. And I didn't bring up this concept that I'm about to show you in the previous essay for the previous weeks with the UC essay because you don't have time. But with this one, we can really do a little bit more. Something that you've heard last week or the 2 weeks before was use vivid, specific facts that add spice. And I'll say it again, and I want you to remember this is the way you write every essay. Don't oversalt your food, because then all it tastes like is salt. Don't undersalt your food, then otherwise you have a really bland dish. You add just enough salt to liven it up. That is the way you write a sentence. That is the way you write an essay. Not every single, what are they called? You know, maybe you don't salt some of the vegetables, but your main course you do, or you don't salt your dessert, I don't think. Well, there's savory and sweet, maybe. But anyway, so there's all these different things. You don't have to add spice to everything, because then it becomes, it's too much. So not only do you not want to over-spice something, you don't want to spice every single thing, because then your pattern becomes very, very bland, because it's all the same. So it's that delicate balance. Now, the only way you're going to know that delicate balance, you think you're going to write this out and go, this is perfect, my God. But no, maybe not. Maybe it's not always going to be perfect. So think about that. And then this is where we're different than the UC essays. We're taking the reader on a journey of discovery. They are having a chance, 650 words, to discover who you are. Some of you are very, very long-winded. I've worked with you on essays. I know how long-winded you can be. You believe that you need to tell your life story in 1,500 words. No, sorry kids, you only got 650. Now you get it around 750 to 800 words because you just kind of do a mind dump. That's okay, we can get down to 650. You give me 350 words because you're just rephrasing your UC essay. We're gonna have to throw that one back on the fire and let it cook a little bit more. You need some more. So anywhere between, say, 500 and 800 words is a really good starting to early phase of the essay. And the reason why that's such a good spot is it gives me enough room to cut and it gives me enough room to add. Right? So there's that just kind of that delicate balance. All right, don't write what you think they want to hear. You're writing a personal essay. You want to write what you want to tell them. You are in charge of this narrative. Rhythm is very, very critical. Rhythm is this concept we don't need to. Some of the best writing, read Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. The rumor is that I've always been told that he hand wrote it and rewrote it 100 times. That wasn't on a computer word processor that he took and just moved stuff around, right? This was, he rewrote it. And so he was able to focus in on word choice and then on his rhythm. So it can often be better to spice something up with a rhythmic pattern as opposed to a big fancy word. And honestly, at your age, you probably don't know many big fancy words, or at least know how to use them properly. That's not a slam on you, it's just a statement of your Common Core upbringing. Common Core did away with a lot of big fancy words and said, okay, well, let's learn how to use basic stuff, right? So all of a sudden you come out with all this flowery prose and, ooh, if you don't master that one, it's gonna look bad. Finally, don't use 50 words if 5 will do. So this is what will happen, is that you'll write the 800-word essay, the 750-word essay, and you'll be panicked. Like, nope, we can go through and just really cut out that. Switch things around, subject-verb agreement, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, we went from a 10 or 12-word sentence to now to a 5-word sentence. And like, wow, that was really good. That added power. Sometimes you have too many of those short 5, 6-word sentences, and we need to kick them up a little bit. You need to subordinate them, right? So don't panic. If well, all of a sudden we're going through and we're editing these essays and it's like, oh, I need to cut words, not add. Yes, by adding some words now, we might be able to cut something later. Okay, I'm not going to go over these. I went over these the last couple weeks, but these are just things to think about. What about being a college student excites you? What creative trait do you admire most? Right? These are just things to get started. List a few words that describe your ideal college community. There are thousands of colleges. Why you're interested in yours? These are all supplemental topics that I think it's actually beneficial for you to go write some of the supplemental topics first. They're short. They give you an anchor point. You can start writing. And I've mentioned this before. The moment that you open up an essay topic, pressure is on. You don't want to waste time. You don't want to be then doing this to begin with. And so now all of a sudden I have to write, I have to be perfect. No, most of your effort will get cut. Most of your effort in writing will be wasted if you look at it as a waste. It's not really being wasted. And really what it is it's an investment into something better. So let's not consider all of the stuff that we write that we don't use a big waste of time. Nope, that helped me get to the part where I need to go. All right, so let's consider now the different topics. Excuse me one second. Let's consider these topics. We're going to get to the 7 different topics in a sentence, in a second. But I want you to recognize that you're trying to write your story and that you're the focal point. Now, you can have someone else be the focal point, but then you have to make certain that you pivot this very cleverly that shows that what you've learned. The downside, when you try and do that, it's really, really hard because the reader is expecting to hear about you, and you spend 300 words writing about someone else. This is your mentor, this is what I learned, etc. While it's doable, it's really hard to pull off. So it would probably be better to go back and say, hey, let's focus in on what my hero's journey is, right? This is what I want. I want to decide what my hero's journey is. And you are, believe it or not, a hero. You may not believe you're a hero. You may believe you're just a punky high school kid that just is desperate to get out of the house because you're in this COVID quarantine and everything sucks and blah, 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 and you're getting cheated out of your senior year. I agree with every one of those things, right? I really do. I have tremendous empathy, actually sympathy. I don't understand what it's like to have, I had a fantastic senior year, and I wish for all of you to have that same sort of thing. However, I do know that things happen for a reason, and I can only hope that what's happening to you now is going to yield tremendous things in the future for you. So don't lament what you're losing, try and focus in on what you're gaining. Granted that what you feel like you're gaining right now is pretty small. So this is your hero journey, right? And what is your path? We all took a different path to get to this point. And so you need to make certain that you explain what that path is. How did you do it? What were the key points? So people then go, well, I don't know what this is, Mike. I don't know how to write this. Well, so in reality, you're writing a nonfiction piece, but we're going to use a fictional backdrop, right? And this is where, this is the real ingenious aspect of this, right? Is because we're going to take a nonfiction story, which is your story, and we're going to apply it to a fictional formula. So what ends up happening is everyone likes a conflict. So you get to say, do you live in an ordinary world? Have you had a call to action? Or did you back down from the call? All three of those are, one is the lack of conflict, one is that I rose to conflict, and then the third one is I shied away from conflict. Not one of those is better than another. Okay? You didn't have to be the hero. There are many times where I back down from things. And quite honestly, I like to try and focus my entire life on just living in this ordinary, boring world. But I can still write a good essay. I can still talk about the way that I work inside of this world. So conflict is key. And in your non-fictional life that's been pretty boring, you go, well, what's my conflict? Well, we'll be amazed. We'll be able to find something. So again, the three. Do I have an ordinary life? Have I risen to a challenge, or did I shy away from a challenge? If we do select ordinary life, okay, what's the critical component? That I recognize the weakness. What am I missing in an ordinary world? I'm not going out, I'm not challenging myself. What am I lacking? Did I have a great call to action? Okay. What was the reason? What was the motivation? Sorry, I write horribly. And then, or did you back down from the call? Okay. Fear. Was it fear? Was it common sense? Well, that's kind of interesting. If I back down from something, why? Because maybe you played out the statistics and you recognize that, gosh, it doesn't make sense to jump into this and take up this call to action because there's danger, or it's going to influence something for my family. There's all kinds of things to do there. So not one of these is better. However, you have in your mind the hero's journey. Well, you're the hero. And you could be a faulty hero, you could be a tragic hero, you could be an inspirational hero. But you're still this hero of the story. You're the main point. But if you live in an ordinary world, you need to recognize your weaknesses there. And that's okay. And if you had a call to action, what was the reason? What was the motivator? What got you to be beyond yourself? And now this is the one that no one seems to write on, but these are some of the most powerful. Why did you back down? Well, because I was afraid. I had never come across an experience like that before. I didn't know how to act. And now I do. I saw what happened when there was no action, and it's haunted me. I had a friend that was getting bullied, and I didn't do anything. And there was some sort of issue that came about, whatever that is. And now you know, hey, I'm not going to let that happen again. Learning is very, very powerful. And you want to express to these people that you actually have learned, right? That's the critical component here, is that I've been through a battle. I've been through a trial. and I've learned about this. So if you're on the call last week to this week, you'll see that my hair is shorter. Because yay, I got to go get a haircut. So the lady that cuts my hair, she's cut my hair for years, and she's seen me, and I haven't seen her for whatever, 6 months or however long we've been locked down. And she goes, well, you seem pretty calm. I know that you got all kinds of various businesses, and I know you got all these people that work for you, and you know, nothing's good here. Well, you seem to be very calm. Why? And I said, because this is the 4th time that I've been through this sort of business environment. Yeah, this one is just called a pandemic that's affecting the business, but it could have been a recession, it could have been a lawsuit, it could have been all these different things. And so I've been through this experience to now have a perspective. And trust me, the very first time I went through trouble in my business, I was a mess. Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, right? Gained weight, looked horrible, bad health. And that helped me to get to this point now where it's like, yeah, we'll get through. If not, we'll go find something else. So that would be, hey, I backed down from this initial call. Okay, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, there was a business situation, and I decided I'm going to take up arms. I'm going to lead this charge. I'm going to break away, blah, blah, blah. Okay, landed me in a lawsuit. Whew. Okay, boy, that was a tough one. So I didn't have enough fear, and I didn't have enough common sense. So dumb, 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 dumb. But I now learned from that. And now I want to live in this ordinary world. But gosh, I do yearn from this other reason to do these other things. So you have so much at your disposal in any of the conflicts, but you don't have to have always been the winning or inspirational hero. You're going to have assets and allies. So who is your hero of your story if you're not? Right? And there is a cool play where you can be on the sidelines watching this person. And that person is pulling you along into this role of doing something more. Who are your allies and who are your enemies? Now, you don't have a lot of chances here in terms of space and time to discuss all of my friends or all of my allies and all of these people are the mean girls or all of this are the bad people, blah, blah, blah. But really what it comes down to is that I need to show I had someone in my corner and I had someone against me. And then finally, what's your concept? Well, what is the story that you're trying to tell? And so what I've learned is that there's only 2 things that happen in literature, right? In fiction, there are characters that create events, and there are often events that create characters. So if you don't know what your concept is, start looking at the characters in your life. Look at your allies, look at your enemies. Right? Because writing the essay is actually kind of easy once you get going. It's really hard to get started. And so all of this stuff is to get you the seed, to let it germinate and grow. So who are the characters, and what, in your experience, what of your characters, what events have they led to? Well, sometimes it works the other way. Sometimes I have had these events. I was training for something, or I thought I was going to go into something, and characters developed out of that. So that's a very powerful pathway to do that as well. And that might help you to your concept. And your concept is going to be your story. What is your personal story? All right. So in a nice little summary, allies and enemies lead to a trial. And we don't necessarily mean a trial in a court, but it's the trials would be the things that the challenges, the ordeal. And then there's this fulfillment that comes out of that. And then ultimately, what's the resolution? Okay? So that's one way to create a really nice personal essay for the Common App, is that I've given myself friends and enemies that have led to some sort of conflict. That envelops into a giant thing, and then I get my resolution at the end, my nice, happy Disney ending. Just be aware, it doesn't always have to be a happy ending. In fact, if you can't make it a happy ending, don't. I mean, if it doesn't truly have a happy ending, don't manufacture one. It's going to come off as poor. We all know that your work is a life in progress. And at this point in time, it hasn't fully played out. But what have you learned in this process? That's what they want to see. Okay, so where to start your story? Well, what's the most alluring part? And so last week we talked about, there's just a simple little formula that I use. I got to do over here so I have space. And this is the lure. I often think of a fishing lure. It's flashy, grabs a fish's attention. These people are reading hundreds, if not 1,000 essays. What's the one flashy thing that's going to take their attention and drive it towards yours instead of just going, you're boring, boring, boring. And then you need some sort of intro. Now so there's this concept of the attention getter, right? Or the hook, there's all kinds of things. But the reason I like lure is, again, this flash. And it's supposed to lead you to something else. So the lure is supposed to lead you to an intro, which then leads you to your story. So all those things that I've talked about, I want you to try and compress into this little 3-phased approach. So what part is the most alluring, right? Lure and allure, same sort of concept. What is it that's going to be so interesting to me? Because you have to capture these readers' imagination. Where do the main characters have the most conflict? Or whatever conflict that you've selected, right? The positive win, or the call to action, or you shied away from the call. Right? You need to have something to write about. And most importantly, your story needs an emotional connection. Because see, what's going to end up happening is I'm going to get your essay, and your essay is going to have nothing personal on it. It's just going to be a bunch of numbers. But what is it that's so interesting about a college campus? Well, I shouldn't ask you. I'm going to tell you what it is for me, because you might have a different opinion. But what's so interesting about a college campus for me is all the people. And all the chances, all the opportunity to meet someone, all the opportunities to find and go like, wow, I went to school with that person. You know, looking back, and that person went on to do this really cool thing. Like, oh, that was cool. I knew that. I was in the dorms with that kid. Right? I can't believe that. Yeah, I'm here on a, Wednesday night teaching you, and they were doing something really cool. But hey, they did that, you know, they really generated something great. So it's all these people that make it so interesting, but you don't get really cool people from just looking at numbers, your GPA, what AP classes you took. Yes, that has a part, but this year, more so than any other year that I can recount, that I can tell in the last 33 years, you need to have an emotional connection. You need to give them something, because if you don't give them something, I'm afraid that they're not gonna grab, right? They're not gonna bite that lure. So here are your writer steps. Have a prologue. This is my introduction. I need my setup. My catalyst. What's my catalyst? This is the thing that moves the thing along. And sometimes this right here is a little bit like a teeter-totter. Right? Because in order to make my story work, I need something to really get this going. Otherwise, I just have two people sitting. I mean, you've seen it's right, two little kids sitting on a teeter-totter. I can't draw kids, but that's what it would look like. And their feet are dangling, and it's kind of fun. But then all of a sudden they're like, okay, this is boring. Nothing happens. The teeter-totter is only fun when you get to go back and forth and back and forth. And so we need that action. And that's what the catalyst is going to do. What's my action? What's going to get me going? Don't forget about my beloved crisis, right? I need some sort of emotional connection, and then I need my climax and solution. I need this all stuff to end up. So again, I'm an English teacher. I've done these for years. I've done these essays for every which way I can possibly think of. And this path is the one to me that makes the most sense, is where I create a story that you take the reader on an emotional journey and you give them some sort of solution. The solution doesn't always have to be a win, but they have to have some sort of solution. Okay, any questions on that whole path? Now is the time to go back and stop me and said, Mike, you lost me at the first word, whatever it is, please tell me. Dear God, don't make me call on you and parrot what I said. Better come up with a question. I know I'm not that brilliant that I was able to, oh dear God. Yes, okay, yes, Kyle.
Oh, what's like the difference between like the main difference between like the prologue and the setup, and like how do you distinguish that?
So often the prologue is, you can consider that like the lure, right? That's the little thing that jumps me into the story. And I think about any great mystery story where there's something that's part of the story, but it captures my imagination. That's really what I think the prologue does, is it's this little bit of, it's a little bit outside, but it's something that kind of sets it all up. And then, well, then that leads to the setup, right? Oh, here's my intro. Okay? But sometimes I know that when I talk about these things, I know some people need, I have this, I have this, I have that. And they feel very unfulfilled if I don't give them that step. When I say, oh, give me something flashy, give me an intro, and then give me my story. They're like, what's my story? Well, here it is. Okay? Any other questions? Don't hesitate to ask. I love the sound of my own voice, but it is nice to take a rest every once in a while and hear someone else's voice. Nothing but disappointments. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. Let's talk about these different essay topics here. So what I did with the UCs, what I'm going to do with this one, this is topic number 1. You have 7 topics on the Common App, and you have to write 1. My best advice to you is take 7 topics and write 2 essays. And then you pick your best one. Now, I know what you're thinking. There's no chance in the world, Mike. I'll shake my head. I go, great idea. I'll pretend like I'm taking notes. I'm going to tell my parents, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. No chance in hell am I going to do that. Possibly. But the fact that I even get you to entertain a second topic will generally make your first topic better, because you'll really put some thought into it. All right, and that's the trick, is we really want to squeeze out the very best essay that you can. So topic number 1, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent so meaningful, they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, please share your story. All right, so, and again, remember, all 7 are created equal. That's what they say. I don't think number 7 is created as equal as the other 6. Because when we get to number 7, that's like, oh, give me an essay that you've already written, right? If you really want to get into the school, you're going to generate a new topic. You're going to generate something new here. But some students have a background, identity, or interest, or talent so meaningful, but they believe their application would be incomplete without it. So probably the most, the one that comes to mind is a kid was going to USC, or I'm sorry, applying to USC, and he was the voice of Dash from The Incredibles. And he was trying to tell me that he wanted to write how being Dash helped him prepare him for the rest of the world, or, you know, the rest of his life. And Like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. How in the world are you reading into a microphone for a cartoon and you got base wages? You didn't get any points. You're not rich. You just got a chance to get in the game. I think he did get in to do one or two other things, and his career's over, right? Because his voice changed, because he's no longer cute little Dash. I was almost Linus for Charlie Brown cartoons, too. I missed out on that one when I was in third grade, just another side story. But this kid was adamant about it, right? And I was fighting him on it, and we talked it all through, and he came to the realization that the reason why this was critical for him was because he's at a recording studio at the movie studio. There are people all around. He's got these other famous actors. He's a nobody, but he had to perform. And if he didn't, it cost time and money in terms of delays. So he was convinced that this concept of learning how to deal with pressure was going to help him no matter what career he took up in the future. And I didn't see that at first, but he was really after that, and it was like, okay, I bought into it, and he was able to generate a really good essay. And so that was an interest or a talent that he had that he was able to portray. I've read hundreds of really rotten ones about, I have a background from a certain religion or ethnicity, and they couldn't actually give me that fulfillment. Okay, tell me your struggle. But then they could not actually put what their struggle was in words and how that struggle affected the rest of their life. And it was because they didn't want to reveal that inner aspect of their lives. So if you really do feel as if there's a background or something that you identify that is compelling, please write about it. I don't want to dissuade you from writing about it, but be prepared that if you're going to write about it, you really need to reveal everything that it's affected you on. And you might come across some things that you haven't thought about before, and it might make you feel nervous. Because now all of a sudden it's like, ooh, this is out there in the world. So a couple of things to think about: family history, background, right? Life experiences shaping you as a person. Or if you achieve something so unique that the college you're applying to would be better out without you. That was the kid that was Dash, right? Is that I offer something special. I can really be something for you if you let me in. I think that this has the greatest risk and the greatest reward. I think that if you do this one correctly, can be so fantastic because you so reveal and so open up. But I also think that if you don't do it right, this one sits flat, and this is a stew with no spice. Just horrible, horrible, horrible. All right? Questions on number one? Don't be shy. Number two. The lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, a setback, or a failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? Okay, I failed a test when I was a freshman. Oh my gosh, and this was horrible, and I only got A's, and I've only been the most wonderful person, and I had to sit on the bench for the first time, even though I've always been captain of the soccer team. Blah, 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 blah. Give me something. I don't care what your obstacle is. Give me something that came from it. That's the problem, is that you look too much at what the obstacle was. You want to write about this gigantic obstacle, but you're missing the point. The obstacle, it can be nothing. We take from lessons we take. Look at the first 4 or 5 words. The lessons we take. Right? That's what they want. Don't write about the obstacle. The obstacle is meaningless. It's what did you learn from it, and how can that guide you to further success? That's all that matters. Now, if you got a hangnail, and the hangtail gave you a really bad day, Okay. We're going to have to come up with something a little more than just a hangnail. We need a little bit of trauma and drama here. But I have a kid on here that loves swimming and, you know, hurt her knee and kind of took swimming out of her life. And so now all of a sudden, what can she take from that? What can she learn? Right? I mean, so this is a possible one for that. I have another kid. How come it's all these kids that I'm associated with broken bones and bad parts? You know, moved schools and busted up ankles or knees, and you know, and it derailed certain parts of sports career. Okay, right? That happens in life. I'm sorry that it happened. What did you learn from it? That's the critical part. So, how did you deal with the hardship? What qualifies as a challenge or setback in your life and world? So this is the other thing. It's okay to say, listen, I had a bad day, I got injured, or pandemic. So this is my scale. I'm kind of in the middle here. I realize that what I'm writing about is worse than just having a single bad day, and oh my goodness, it's nowhere near the hardship that we're dealing with right now in the world. People losing lives and jobs and things that they built and worked for all these years. So it's okay to offer the reader some perspective, right? It's really okay to say, listen, in my little sheltered life, I've never had a pandemic. And really, all I ever had was a bad day before I got injured. Sure, I lost some tears or whatever, but you know, I got a nice thing of ice cream and I had a good cry and everything was better after that. Right? I mean, you know, it's okay to put these things in perspective and let the reader know that this is part of your life, that I'm growing from this. Each time I have a different encounter, I learn a little bit more, and I kind of stock that away for future use. And this is what I was talking about, me going through multiple recessions with my business and getting sued and all these horrible things. And now I'm like, yeah, I got this. I've been through all kinds of crap. I can deal with this. And if I can, I'll find something new tomorrow. That's the way my personality is. And so I don't know if I'm going to win at the end, but maybe I've got to change what I decide is a win. Was a win that I kept on going? Because that sounds like a win. Giving up sounds like a loss. Yeah, did I get to retire at 55? Well, I got 2 years, and congratulations if you guess that I'm not going to be able to retire in 55, because that ain't happening, right? Never was really a choice, and it's certainly not happening now. But when we look at all these different things, I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to keep fighting for what I enjoy. So that's the lesson that I would take from it. Yeah, okay, I'm in my 50s and you guys are 17. I recognize there's a difference, but again, look at that scale and look at what we took from it. Make note, are you the kind of person that can rebound or turn every experience good or bad? And it's really okay to say, remember how before I erased it, it was a bad day, injured, whatever, pandemic. It's okay to say, as part of your journey, I shied away from all of this. I avoided every call to action there was. Every time there was an element, I backed away. It's okay to admit that. And the reason why it's okay to admit that is because you're going to say, I recognize what's happened. And now my battle in life is to not let it happen again. But there's a good chance it will, because I'm human and I'm prone to failure. I'm prone to mistake. All of those things are fantastic things to throw into an essay. It makes the stew really tasty, right? Doesn't have to be perfect. Not everything's a win. You can define how you want from win. And then again, try and find what that silver lining is. Questions on number 2. Number 3, Reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted your thinking? What was the outcome? All right, so my favorite essay ever on this one, out of 3 decades, was written last year by my neighbor. And when I read this, I said, ooh, right? This is you. This is exactly who you are. You challenge everything. And what we learned, right, because I've known her since she was born, because she's been my neighbor, what I learned about her was that her challenge was more of self-doubt. When she challenged something, it wasn't out of that she knew better. She just didn't know. And so she constantly was asking, should I do that or should I do this? And that paralyzed her. And so what people perceived as a weakness, what people perceived as a strength, oh, you challenge her, was really a weakness, is that she just didn't know what to do. And so her challenging everything was a personality trait that went across everything that she did. How she got dressed. Should I wear this? Should I not wear that? It would paralyze her. What should I have? And it wasn't until she actually reflected upon this, I would like to take a little credit, pat myself on the back for being the neighbor therapist, where we kind of talk through that, wow, I always thought that this was this bad thing, but I recognize now that I can make this a positive. And that's what they want to see, right? Is what is this that they come from? So, the more traditional ones are, was your opinion unpopular? I am not making this a political discussion. I am not for or against anyone. I'm trying to give you a specific topic here. You have an existing leader who is unafraid of unpopular ideas. And that is polarizing, right? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying that it's polarizing. Now, you could say, hey, in my group, on my team, in my house, I'm not afraid to come up with the thing that people don't want to hear. I'm not the type that sweeps things under the rug. I am the type that is willing to look and say, oh, there's an opposite side to this. So don't be afraid if you have an unpopular idea that you can express this. Why are you the kind of person willing to stand up for what you believe in? This is the call to action. I feel something so powerful, I need to rise up and let everyone know. Now, don't think that you can weave this story into the ordinary life. Well, you could start off with the ordinary life, but you rose to the call to action. But they're asking you, reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. They didn't ask you or you ignored it. Because remember, number 3 was, hey, I avoided the call to action, right? I turned my back in hidden fear. This topic here, we have to, this is only one thing. I rose to the occasion. And how passionate are you about it? How far are you willing to go? Are you willing to put yourself into extra work? Were you willing to put yourself in harm's way? So my very first job, real job out of college, was working for the CIA. I wasn't a spy, I just read satellite photos, I was a nerd. I know that comes as no surprise to some of you. I was not interested in the Secret Service. I was not willing to take a bullet for someone. Right? So I was passionate about defending our country, but not that passionate. Again, but that's okay to rank where your passion sat. Because what you're revealing to the reader is that I'm pretty smart. Because not only do I think about these things, I think about myself in context to the rest of the world, and I recognize I'm not the most brilliant. I'm not the bravest. I'm not this, I'm not that. I recognize I fall in line. And I'm not always second, I'm not always last. Right? On some things I'm up real good, and some things I'm just kind of middle of the road, and other things I'm down at the bottom. And that shows an emotional intelligence that reveals that you're going to be a good candidate for this school. Questions on number 3. I am proud of you for staying awake this long, though. Thank you. We're nearly done. Describe a problem you've solved or a problem you would like to solve. It can be an intellectual challenge, a research query, an ethical dilemma, anything of personal importance, no matter the scale. Explain its significance to you and what steps you took or could be taken to identify the solution. All right, so, I've lost family members to cancer, heart disease. I would love to cure these horrible, horrible things. Yeah, so would I. Okay. What are you going to do about it? I don't know. I just want that to happen. Not a very good essay. Really not a very good essay on that one. Well, I was thinking about it, and I think that what if you were to do this? So there's one doctor in trying to cure COVID. He said, I'm not trying to prevent it. It's a virus. It's going to come through the rest of the world. What I'm going to try and do is prevent how badly it affects you. So I'm just going to let everyone get it. But if we can, and one of the things that happens apparently is in the lungs, right? There's this tremendous inflammation of the lungs, and they fill up, and that's how people they struggle and die. And so he found one of these heart medications, which reduces that. And he's thinking that, gosh, this is really not a bad thing at all. We're just going to let everyone get the virus, or 70%, or whatever it is that's got to do for the herd immunity, but we're just going to minimize the effects. Now that's pretty intelligent, because trying to come up with something that's going to cure it all is really amazing. But this doctor said, no, I'm going to set my sights lower. I just want to minimize it. I'm not going to try and make it go away. So that was just a cool twist on this, I thought. And so that's sort of the things that kids can write about. It's like, I've been thinking about world peace, and I really don't know how to solve it, but what if we did this? Oh, that's kind of cool. Okay, but that's world peace. Well, what if we have this other sort of intellectual challenge? We don't have a way of giving students equal access in a world where we need access. Okay, well, what if we had little hubs where all the kids could go, and then it would be just like this? And like, okay, that's it. Thank you. That's an attempt to find a solution. Your solution doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be perfect. What they're looking for is the fact that you had the thought and that you want it to go forward and be something. That's what they're really looking for. Have you been proactive in any of these things? Is there something that inspires you? A thing to throw in that adds a little spice is, how do you want to be left? How do you want people to remember you? Right? So your parents are getting older. I'm getting older. I don't plan on dying anytime soon, but I'm at the other side of the teeter-totter has started to slide downhill for me. So I'm starting to think, okay, what am I going to leave? I'm not a rich man, so I can't leave lots of wealth. But maybe I could leave something to my kids, to the kids that I teach. Is there something that I could leave to them that got them into someplace else? I go, okay, that's kind of, I like that idea, right? That's something that's intangible. So go ahead and is that how you want to be perceived, or excuse me, remembered, right? What's your mark that you want? These are all the things that you can incorporate into this. And then lasting impact, right? Is there something in here that could leave a lasting impact? Remember, the critical term here is intellectual challenge, a research query, an ethical dilemma. So this can't be just, I was just thinking one day, would it be really nice instead of having to get up and turn the light switch on if I just clapped twice and it just turned on? Right? Wouldn't that be a cool invention? That really would, and this is not the essay topic for that invention. Right? One, because it already exists, and two, it's not that intellectual of a challenge. Okay, questions on number 4. Number 5, discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. So, This is very much in that hero's journey concept, right? I had something occur. I recognized who it was. I took up this fight, and then I went on to conquer. So this is definitely one of those that you can go through and you can form fit that whole first part of what I was talking about. You can definitely nail this and make this work. No issues whatsoever on this one. So how do you react to periods of transition? They want to see how you react. What inspires you? What did your perspective change from? It went from one thing to the next. This is that story. Lead them on the emotional journey. When did you have that eureka moment, and how has it impacted your life afterwards? How will it impact others that you've dealt with? What were the moments in life that fundamentally changed you as a person? And when did you learn something that made you feel more adult, more capable, more grown up? So here, for me, I keep reading about, I don't like to read the paper, or I don't like to read the news, I should say, paper's passe. I don't like to read the news because I don't know who to believe anymore. Mark Twain said that if you read the news, Mark Twain said if you don't read the news, you're uninformed. If you read the news, you're misinformed. So if Mark Twain said this all those years ago, it's like he's sitting in front of a computer screen right now and looking, if I read that, I don't know what I'm looking at, right? So everything's a big mess. So I don't like to really look at all this stuff. But this whole COVID thing, all these people dying and all of that, and right, I'm in my office and I'm in my little teaching studio. The rest of the world doesn't exist. This is what I do. But I kept recognizing why I was not bothered by all these people dying. And this was my part, my personal growth, is I started to recognize why. What am I hiding from? What are these things that I'm trying to protect myself from? It's because I had a little bit of a questionable upbringing as a kid, and I had some difficulties and some, you could say, abuse and things like that, emotionally wise, that I put up this shield to protect myself. And so because of that, I kept all this stuff away. I didn't want to feel. Right? So now all of a sudden I'm in this process where, okay, I'm starting to feel, and that's uncomfortable. Right? If you've never really had emotions and all of a sudden you have emotions, it's not fun because you don't know what to deal with them. And so I'm either totally stone-faced or a bad crier. I'm an ugly crier. I mean, lips moving and just the full waterworks. I mean, it's ugly to watch what happens to me. But I will go and never cry, and then all of a sudden can't control myself. And that's because all of those demons are escaping all at one time. And I push them all back inside because I don't like to have that emotion. Well, okay, this last 5 months, I've been able to actually have more emotion because I've got more sympathy and empathy with people dying. So this was a point of personal growth, and I can talk about that. I'm not expecting you to have the same thing, but this has to be this emotional journey that you bring people on. Okay, we talked about that one. Questions on number 5? Okay, we're almost done. Number 6, describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? So this is that one that we were talking about. You can have that mentor. Right? We talked about this way, way early on, about an hour ago, about this mentor that you can write a couple hundred words, but it's very dangerous because if you don't bring it back to yourself. And so you can say that, hey, when I talk to this person, right? And this would be anyone that talked to Socrates, right? They were so engaging. Socrates would make you lose all track of time, and you'd go through all these different things, and someone would help you learn all this stuff. But the critical element here is, why does it captivate you? Why? So describe a topic. Describe's not sexy. What or who do you turn to? You want to learn more. Not sexy. Right here. Why? That's sexy. Why? Always keep doing that. And that whole hero's journey, you can totally incorporate that concept. Some people just learn to love, some people just love to learn. right? You can be a professional student is what that's called. You just never leave college because you just love learning. What have you done on your own to go outside so that you actually acquire that information? And what is your process of learning? So do you jump in? Do you read about it? Do you study it? Do you, right? Figure that out. That's part of that path. This is how you make someone know that you're human. Because there's been no questions on the first 5. I know there's no questions on 6, so I'm not even going to ask. There. If you have a question, stop me, but I know you won't. And then number 7, this is the cop-out one. Now remember, they're all created equal, but I don't think this one's created all that equal. Share an essay of your topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. If you have this killer essay that you want to write, or that you've written that you want to throw in there, that's great. But to me, the way this reads, I didn't care enough about this college app to write something new. They gave me 6 pretty broad topics, and I decided I had to do something else. Now, the only time that I think that I will accept, I shouldn't say that. The only time that I think I'm more amenable to accepting this, right? I'm not accepting anything. You're the one that's submitting this application. But if you're looking for me for advice, I got to help you out with this. Is that sometimes there would be 1 or 2 prompts that are clearly Common App essay prompts, that are not Coalition App, and are not UC App, right? All the Common App people know what all those other apps look like. But if you had 2 topics that kind of blended, you could do this. But then my question would be, why couldn't you just write 650 words on one of the 2 topics? So yes, you can write on this then, anything you want. It's not my favorite, and it's not one I recommend. Okay, any questions on the first 7 topics? You only have to write 1. I know you're all gonna convince me by nodding your heads. Yes, Mike, I'm gonna write 2. Yes, exactly, thank you. Thank you, Jessica, for lying to me. It makes me happiest when you lie, there you go. But really, I need you to squeeze out 1 great one, and sometimes what happens is people will start outlines for 2, start doing some mind mapping for a second one, and then realize that they all can focus in on 1. Okay, so if there's no questions on there, let's jump to the Common App COVID question. So this year, for the first time ever, they have added a question specifically about how COVID has impacted your life. I'm gonna go back to here so you can actually see my bright, shiny, smiley face. What they're looking for is they don't want you to write about your COVID experience as your essay topic. They want you to write about your essay topic, and then they want you to give you a supplement of, hey, here's your chance to explain what it is on this. You got 250 words to explain your concept about how COVID. So here it is. Community disruptions such as COVID-19 and natural disasters can have deep and long-lasting impacts. If you need it, this space is yours to describe those impacts. Colleges care about the effects on your health and well-being, safety, family circumstances, future plans, and education, including access to reliable technology and quiet study places. So first thing I would say is, who wrote that? And they should be fired, because that's a horribly written sentence. Should have been a couple of sentences. Second, it gives you enough to really write about. And so people will say, well, I didn't really have anything to impact me on COVID. So remember that little anecdote I gave you about me actually having feelings and thought and all that stuff? That this would be a good one for that, right? The colleges don't have a whole lot to get from you this year. So I would definitely encourage you to write something on this Common App COVID question. Highly recommend that you do that one. And the reason why is that you can always choose to not write about it later or not include it later, but start writing now and see what you get. I like to think that I have a couple of essays writing at one time. And so what I do is it's kind of like juggling, right? I have essays 1, 2, 3, but I have, for the UCs, I have 4 essay topics, and for the Common App, I have 1. So I have 5 total essays I got to juggle. And then you throw in the COVID question, I got 6. Well, if you've seen people juggle, it's a process of you're not really touching all the balls at one time. The balls are in the air, and you're just flicking them around. And this is the way you handle your essays. Take 3 of your essays, whatever 3 they are, spend about 2 weeks with them, and then change one out, kind of like you're juggling. And then juggle that around for a little while, and then change another one out, and then just keep rotating them through. I think it's hard if you go, I'm going to work on 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to put 1, 2, 3 away. Because our brains, after we go to sleep, we tend to work on stuff. We wake up and go, ooh, I had an idea. So you're going to reach a point where I got nothing else to write about number 3. Okay, good. Now I'm going to throw in number 4. And number 3's out. And number 1, oh, okay, yeah, I'm kind of done with number 1 now. Now I'm going to put in number 5, right? And you just keep rotating those through. And if you do this in 1 or 2 week cycles, you'll be amazed at how far in terms of advancement you'll get in a few weeks. I think it's going to be very, very challenging if you decide that you are writing your Common App essay question tonight and finishing it by tomorrow or next week. That's not the way good writing is done. Good writing is done in little bits, little sprints. Work really hard, then rest. Put it away. Then come back to it. Work really hard, then put it away and rest and go work on something else. Right? If you try and treat it like a marathon race where you're going to do a little bit each and every day, what happens in a marathon race? You get pretty bored and pretty tired. But if you sprint, you work really hard and then you get to rest. And so I think that generates the best essays when you kind of keep that juggling concept and then you put them away. So juggle real hard, put them away, work on something else. So there you have it. You have, thank you for all of the fantastic questions that you've given to me over the last 75 minutes. It's been so meaningful for all of these deep, insightful questions that you've given to me. Makes my job standing in a dark room, talking to myself. Again, I enjoy the mirror more than anyone else, but it is nice when I do hear you fire something back. But if you do or are interested in getting any sort of tutoring on this for essays, want someone to read it, want someone to help you direct it, let me know. Myself, one of my other tutors, we can help you out. All right, are there any questions before I say goodbye? No? Okay, thank you for all staying awake. It's so hard when you're on camera, you can't sleep. I know some of you tried to prop up, yourself with other things, and the camera's like face towards the ceiling, so I can see it's the top of your head, but I do appreciate you having your eyes open for most of the time. Thank you very much. And if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.